Title: The Mirror from the Past. Chapter 1: The Antique Shop. Amanda Smith had always been fascinated by antique stores, their dusty shelves filled with forgotten relics of the past. She loved the way time seemed to slow down the moment she stepped inside one, the air thick with the scent of aged wood, old parchment, and a touch of something unplaceable, perhaps history itself lingering in the corners. On this particular chilly autumn afternoon, she had been wandering aimlessly through the town's quieter streets when she noticed a small, dimly lit shop tucked away between two taller buildings. The sign above the door was nearly illegible, its paint chipped and faded with time. A small bell jingled as she pushed open the heavy wooden door, announcing her arrival. Inside, the shop was a maze of shelves overflowing with trinkets, books, and oddities from various eras. The warm glow of flickering oil lamps and the faint hum of an old gramophone playing in the background gave the place an otherworldly charm. Amanda trailed her fingers along the edge of a polished oak desk, her eyes scanning over porcelain dolls with glassy eyes, vintage clocks frozen at different times, and shelves stacked high with worn leather-bound books. But it was the mirror that caught her attention. It stood against the far wall, partially obscured by a heavy velvet curtain that seemed to have been hastily pushed aside. Its frame was made of gold, intricately carved with swirling patterns of ivy and roses, as if nature itself had grown around it. The glass was unusually clear despite its obvious age, and something about it sent a shiver down Amanda's spine. She stepped closer, drawn to it by an inexplicable force. The moment she peered into the mirror, her breath hitched in her throat. Instead of her reflection, she saw something else, a dimly lit room, its walls adorned with elaborate wallpaper and an oil lamp flickering on a wooden table. A woman stood there, dressed in Victorian-era clothing. Her gown was deep emerald green, its fabric heavy with embroidery. Her auburn hair was styled in intricate curls, and her pale face was marked with an expression of desperation. The woman's eyes locked onto Amanda's, wide with urgency. Her lips moved rapidly, mouthing words Amanda couldn't understand. The sensation of being watched, truly watched, sent a jolt of unease through Amanda's body. She took an instinctive step back, breaking the connection, and when she glanced around the shop, everything seemed unchanged. The same flickering light, the same musty scent, the same eerie silence. Amanda swallowed hard and turned back to the mirror. The Victorian woman was still there, still pleading, her hands pressed against the glass as though she were trapped on the other side. A cold chill spread through Amanda's chest. This wasn't some optical illusion or trick of the light. This woman, whoever she was real. Miss. A deep, raspy voice startled Amanda. She whirled around to find an elderly man standing behind the counter. His hair was as white as snow, his face lined with age, yet his sharp gray eyes held an intensity that made Amanda uneasy. I was just looking, Amanda stammered, her heart still racing. His gaze flickered toward the mirror, and for a brief moment, something unreadable crossed his features. Then he nodded slowly. That mirror has a history, young lady. Amanda hesitated. What kind of history? The old man sighed and stepped out from behind the counter, moving with surprising agility for someone his age. It belonged to Eleanor Whitmore, he said, his voice lowering slightly, as if speaking the name alone carried weight. She lived over 100 years ago, vanished without a trace. Amanda's pulse quickened. And you think she gestured at the mirror. Isn't there? The shopkeeper's lips pressed into a thin line. Many believe the mirror is cursed, that Eleanor's spirit lingers within, waiting for someone who can hear her. Amanda turned back to the mirror, her fingers hovering just above the gilded frame. Eleanor's face remained sorrowful, her lips forming the same silent plea. Help me. A shiver ran down Amanda's spine. She wasn't sure whether it was fear or fascination that compelled her to whisper, "How do I help her?" The old man sighed again, his gaze distant. "That," he murmured, "is a dangerous question." Amanda looked back at Eleanor. In that moment, something inside her shifted, an unshakable feeling that she was meant to uncover the truth. She took a deep breath and made a decision. She wasn't leaving without answers. Chapter 2: A Glimpse into the Past. Determined to uncover the mystery, Amanda purchased the mirror and took it home. That night, she sat in front of it, waiting for the strange vision to return. A chill ran down her spine as she held her breath, staring at her own reflection, which wavered like ripples in water. Then, just as before, the woman appeared. Her translucent form flickered in the moonlight spilling through Amanda's window. This time, Amanda could hear faint whispers. "Help me, please." The voice was desperate, fragile, filled with sorrow. Amanda's heart pounded as the vision wavered, revealing snippets of the woman's past. The dimly lit room where she was trapped had stone walls, rough and unyielding, like those of an old manor or castle. Shadows danced around her, elongating her fearful expression. Chains bound her wrists, and her wide, tear-filled eyes darted around the room. She was terrified. Amanda clenched her fists. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the silence of her bedroom. The woman's lips moved, but no sound came. The scene shifted. Amanda saw the woman pounding on the door, screaming for help. Then, abruptly, another figure entered the vision. A tall, imposing man with piercing eyes and a grim expression loomed over her. He wore dark, old-fashioned clothing, his hands stained with something dark. Was it ink? Or was it blood? He muttered something, and suddenly, the woman collapsed, her body trembling. Then, the vision shattered like glass, leaving only Amanda's pale reflection staring back at her. Amanda gasped, her breath coming in quick, uneven bursts. The room was suddenly too small, too suffocating. She turned away from the mirror, pressing a hand to her chest to steady herself. This wasn't just an illusion. The woman was real, or had been real once. Determined, Amanda reached for her phone and searched for any historical records of missing women who might match the ghostly figure. She scoured the internet deep into the night, but nothing seemed to fit. Frustrated, she leaned back and closed her eyes, the whispers still echoing in her mind. The next evening, she tried again. As she lit a candle near the mirror, hoping to summon the vision once more, a sudden draft snuffed it out. The room darkened, and when Amanda looked up, the woman was already there. "Who are you?" Amanda repeated. This time, the woman spoke, her voice raspy and distant, as though carried across centuries. "Eleanor. Eleanor Whitmore." Amanda's eyes widened. "What happened to you?" Eleanor's expression twisted in anguish. The vision shifted again, and Amanda saw Eleanor being dragged by two men through a grand estate. The walls were adorned with antique paintings, the furniture opulent yet suffocating. The man from before stood at the top of the staircase, watching with cold detachment. Eleanor screamed, her voice raw. "You can't do this. Please. I swear I won't tell." The man said nothing, merely gesturing to the men, who hauled her down into what looked like a cellar. The door slammed shut, and then, darkness. Amanda's stomach churned. What secret had Eleanor discovered that had condemned her to such a fate? The vision dissolved, and Amanda found herself staring at the mirror again, her hands trembling. She had to find out more. The name, Eleanor Whitmore, felt familiar. She quickly opened her laptop and typed it in. Several articles appeared, but one caught her attention. "The Vanishing of Eleanor Whitmore, a Mystery from 1847. Amanda clicked on it, her pulse quickening. The article detailed the story of a young woman who had lived in the Whitmore estate, a grand but eerie manor on the outskirts of town. Eleanor had disappeared one night, and though whispers of foul play had circulated, no one had ever proven what happened to her. The Whitmore family had insisted she had run away, but locals had always suspected something more sinister. Amanda exhaled slowly. She was communicating with the spirit of a woman who had vanished nearly 2 centuries ago. But why her? Why this mirror? She ran a hand along the mirror's ornate frame, tracing its intricate floral engravings. Suddenly, a section of the wood felt loose. Frowning, Amanda pressed on it, and a hidden compartment popped open. Inside was a folded, yellowed piece of parchment. With shaking hands, Amanda unfolded it. The ink was faded but legible. It was a letter, hastily written. To whoever finds this, my name is Eleanor Whitmore. If you are reading this, then I am likely lost to time, but know this. I did not run away. I was taken. He feared what I knew, what I had seen. I beg of you, if you can, tell my story. Do not let him erase me. Amanda's breath hitched. The letter confirmed everything. Eleanor had been silenced. But who was he? The man in the vision? The one with cold eyes and blood-stained hands? Determination hardened within Amanda. Eleanor had reached out through time itself for justice, and Amanda was going to give it to her. She didn't know how yet, but one thing was certain. This mirror held more than just reflections. It held the past, the truth, and a desperate plea for help. And Amanda wasn't going to turn away. Chapter 3: Unraveling the Mystery. Determined to find answers, Amanda delved into historical records. After hours of searching, she found an old newspaper article about a woman named Eleanor Whitmore, who had mysteriously disappeared in the 1800s. The article mentioned her family estate, an abandoned mansion just outside town. Amanda, filled with a mix of fear and curiosity, decided to visit the estate. The road leading to the Whitmore estate was overgrown with weeds, barely distinguishable beneath the tangled vines and fallen leaves. The towering iron gates at the entrance stood rusted and ajar, as if waiting for someone to enter. The estate itself loomed in the distance, a dark silhouette against the twilight sky. The mansion's windows, cracked and clouded with age, seemed to watch her approach like the vacant eyes of a forgotten specter. Amanda hesitated before stepping forward. A cold gust of wind rustled through the trees, whispering ominous warnings she chose to ignore. She pressed on, her heart pounding as she crossed the threshold. The wooden doors groaned in protest as she pushed them open, revealing an entrance hall frozen in time. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs draped the chandeliers like ghostly veils. A tattered rug stretched across the floor, its once vibrant patterns faded beyond recognition. As she stepped inside the decaying house, an overwhelming sense of déjà vu washed over her. The rooms matched those in the mirror, and she could almost hear Eleanor's whispers echoing through the halls. The realization sent shivers down her spine. She had seen this place before, but not in waking life. Amanda ran her fingers along the banister of the grand staircase, its wooden frame smooth despite the years of neglect. With each step she took, the air grew heavier, thick with an almost tangible presence. She wasn't alone. A floorboard creaked behind her. Amanda whirled around, but the hallway was empty. Still, the feeling of being watched persisted. She took a deep breath and moved deeper into the mansion, drawn toward a room at the end of the corridor. The door was slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of ornate furniture and faded wallpaper. Gathering her courage, she pushed it open. The room appeared to be a study, filled with towering bookshelves and an antique writing desk. Papers lay scattered across the floor, their ink faded with time. A portrait above the fireplace caught Amanda's attention, a regal woman with piercing blue eyes and auburn hair, her expression unreadable. The nameplate below the painting read, Eleanor Whitmore. Amanda's breath hitched. The resemblance between Eleanor and herself was uncanny. The same delicate features, the same high cheekbones, almost as if she were looking at an ancestor, or something more unsettling. A sudden draft sent the papers fluttering, drawing Amanda's attention to a single yellowed page on the desk. She picked it up carefully, deciphering the old-fashioned handwriting. To whomever finds this, I fear I am trapped between worlds. The mirror, it is not what it seems. If you hear my voice, please do not ignore it. I need help before it is too late. Amanda's hands trembled as she read. This wasn't just a ghost story. Eleanor had tried to leave a message, a plea for salvation. But how could she help someone lost in time? A faint whisper brushed against her ear, sending icy fingers down her spine. Amanda. She spun around, but the room was empty. The fire in the hearth, long dead, suddenly flickered to life, casting airy shadows on the walls. The temperature dropped, and the whispers grew stronger, more insistent. Find the mirror, find me. Amanda knew she had no choice. Eleanor's fate was somehow tied to her own, and she needed to uncover the truth. Taking a deep breath, she turned toward the doorway, ready to follow the whispers deeper into the mansion. The mystery was only beginning to unravel. Chapter 4. Breaking the Curse. The attic was suffocatingly dusty, its air thick with the scent of old wood and forgotten memories. Amanda coughed as she brushed away cobwebs, her fingers trembling as they grazed over an old, locked chest. Something about it called to her, an unseen force pulling her closer. The lock was rusted, weakened by time, and with a few determined tugs, it gave way with a brittle snap. The lid creaked open, revealing a tattered leather-bound diary resting atop a pile of moth-eaten linens. Her hands shook as she picked it up. The diary's pages were brittle, yellowed with age, the ink faded, yet legible. As she turned to the first page, a name was scrawled in elegant cursive. Eleanor Blackwood. Amanda's pulse quickened. She had heard the name whispered before, in hushed voices from the town's elderly, in fragmented rumors about the Blackwood mansion's haunted past. With a deep breath, she began to read. August 14th, 1862. They have betrayed me, my own flesh and blood. The accusations, the lies, they claim I consorted with dark forces, that I brought misfortune upon our family. My father, my brothers, they locked me away here, in this attic, while they live comfortably below, unburdened by their cruelty. The mirror is my only companion. I see my reflection and barely recognize myself anymore. August 21st, 1862. I have pleaded for mercy, but my cries fall on deaf ears. They leave food outside the door, but refuse to look me in the eye. They fear me. I hear whispers through the walls, rumors that I have cursed this house. If only they knew the truth. If only they knew who the real monsters were. September 3rd, 1862. My strength fades. The days blur together. I dream of escape, but my body is weak. The mirror changes sometimes. I see flickers of something beyond my own reflection, something watching me. I am not alone here. September 9th, 1862. I can feel it now, the presence. It calls to me from the mirror, promising me freedom, promising vengeance. Perhaps I should listen. Amanda's breath came in shallow gasps. She could feel Eleanor's pain bleeding through the ink, her desperation seeping into the very fabric of the room. A sudden gust of wind rushed through the attic, sending loose pages flying, and as Amanda turned toward the ornate mirror in the corner, the surface began to ripple like disturbed water. Then she appeared. Eleanor. But this time, her eyes were not filled with sorrow or anger. They were hopeful. Amanda swallowed hard. You're free now. The air around her shifted, the temperature rising from the chill that had clung to the attic. A breeze swirled around them, lifting the dust into a delicate spiral as Eleanor's form began to waver. A faint smile touched her lips before, with a final flicker, her spirit faded, leaving behind only the mirror's empty reflection. Amanda stood there for what felt like an eternity, absorbing the weight of what had just transpired. The room felt lighter. The oppressive aura that had once clung to it like a shroud had lifted. She exhaled, realizing she had been holding her breath. The next morning, Amanda carefully wrapped the mirror in an old sheet and carried it down the winding staircase of the mansion. She didn't look back as she stepped onto the sunlit path leading to town. The antique shop's bell jingled softly as she entered. The scent of aged books and polished wood enveloped her as she approached the counter. Mr. Holloway, the shop's elderly owner, glanced up from behind his spectacles, curiosity flashing in his eyes as he saw the bundle in her arms. Amanda unwrapped the mirror and placed it gently on the counter. The glass no longer shimmered ominously, no longer felt like it held something within. It was just a mirror now, an object of the past, nothing more. Mr. Holloway studied it carefully. That's a fine antique. What's its story? Amanda smiled faintly, brushing her fingers over the frame one last time. Some things, she murmured, are better left in the past. Mr. Holloway nodded knowingly, sensing there was more to the tale than she was letting on, but he did not press further. He reached under the counter, pulling out a small tag and a pen. "What should I price it at?" he asked. Amanda hesitated for only a moment before replying, "Whatever you think it's worth." As she turned to leave, a soft breeze stirred within the shop, rustling the pages of an open book on the counter. She glanced over her shoulder at the mirror one last time, half expecting to see Eleanor's reflection one final time. But the glass remained empty. Amanda stepped out into the morning light, the weight of the past finally lifted from her shoulders.